أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls and the enlightenment of the hearts, and for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف, enlighten your souls and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Respected scholars, elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It was the Battle of Siffin. A man who is young emerges in front of the army of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. He challenges the combatants. Muawiyah looks at an individual by the name of Abu Sha'sha, who happens to have 7 sons next to him preparing to fight. He says to this man, why do you not respond to the call of this young individual in the army of Ali ibn Abi Talib? One by one, the sons of Abu Sha'sha emerge to the battlefield. They do not return. The young man strikes each and every one of them, killing every single young individual who has come forward. Finally, the father, Abu Sha'sha, also goes to the battlefield and also does not return. The young man, who happened to be masked and people did not know who he was, returns to the army of Ali ibn Abi Talib and stands next to him. At that moment, Amir al-Mu'mineen says to him, reveal who you are. When he reveals and removes the masks, they ask him, who are you? He says, Ana Qamaru Bani Hashim. Ana Abul Fazl Abbas. When we look at the illustrious life of the loyal, brave, courageous brother of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Abul Fazl Abbas, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. each of us can become inspired from seeking the important lessons that we can look at when it comes to examining his achievements and what he stood out to establish. Today, if you walk across Karbala, and we are indeed privileged to be in this holy city, you'll find his name in many places, in banners, and at the same time people flock towards his shrine to pay their respects and to honor his sacrifice and to strengthen their allegiance with this great individual. Abul Fazl Abbas and his achievements truly occupy a very crucial position in our hearts. Each and every one of us indeed displays this love towards this man. And when it comes to his visitation, it falls under the category of the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah Al Hussein, in which the narrations have emphasized greatly the importance of. You'll find Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad Al Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi reminding you and I about the importance of visiting Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam together with Abul Fazl Abbas and the Shuhada of Karbala. Imam al-Sadiq says, "Man zara al-Hussein عارفا بحقه فله الجنة." Whomsoever visits Hussein understanding his position, then Allah grants him paradise. This idea of عارفا بحقه, truly appreciating and having cognizance of the position of Sayyid al-Shuhada, is important for us to reflect. Because when the Imam says, when you come to Karbala and you take this journey to pay your respects and to visit the shrine of Sayyid al-Shuhada, you need to understand who Sayyid al-Shuhada is. And truly none of us will be able to fully understand who this individual is, because we are told in history Salman al-Muhammadi one day was with Rasulullah and with Amir al-Mu'mineen. He came out and somebody said to him, "Oh Salman, is there anyone with the Holy Prophet?" Salman said, "Na'am, indeed there is someone there, وَلَكِنَّنِي لَا أَعْرُفُهُ." I don't know this man. As soon as Salman left, they entered, they saw next to the Holy Prophet there was Amir al-Mu'mineen. They were surprised. They said, "Ya Rasulullah, Salman just said that when I entered here there was a man next to you whom he does not know." Rasulullah said, "Go and ask him." When they came to ask Salman, they said, "Oh Salman, you said you do not know the man next to Rasulullah." Salman said, "Have you not heard the prophetic narration that Rasulullah says, Ya Ali, la ya'rifuka illa Allah wa ana?" That, oh Ali, your ma'rifah cannot be grasped except by Allah and but by myself. When it comes to the Quran today, you and I are told that it has several meanings, and with time we begin to establish and learn and benefit from the fruits of the Quran. What about the Ahl al-Bayt who are side by side with the Quran according to Hadith al-Thaqalain? And therefore with more time we begin to establish the beauties and the magnificence of the Ahl al-Bayt. Therefore their position and their maqam is endless and their ma'rifah is impossible. Therefore we seek this. However, the Imam says, understand his maqam and appreciate that this ziyarah has a great reward. When I was looking at, for instance, the book of Kamilu Ziyarat by Sheikh Ibn Qawlawayh Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, this book that is important for us to recite and to read in order to appreciate why we are here. What's the significance of ziyarah? It tells us about so many benefits of the visitation of the shrine of Abu Abdullah Al Hussein and the Shuhada of Karbala. I managed to count more than 23 benefits. From, for instance, the forgiveness of the sins, from the protection of the wealth, from the protection at the time of death and the sakaratul maut, from the idea that on the day of judgment the waiting for hisab will be reduced for the zuwar of Abu Abdullah, from magnificent narrations like a man who was next to the sixth Imam and said to him, Yabna Rasulullah, I've been to Hajj 19 times. The Imam says to him, why don't you go one more time to Hajj so that you get the thawab of an individual who goes to visit Hussein. Imam alayhi salam one day was praying and someone comes. When he finds the sixth Imam in Salah, he drinks a cup of water. When he finishes the drinking of the water, he says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. The narration tells us that when Imam al-Sadiq finished his salah, he said to him, what did you just say when you had some water? He said, I said, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. The narration tells us Imam al-Sadiq said to him, are you able, would you please swap the thawab of what you have just said with the salah that I have just performed? This is not something to be taken trivially. This is not an issue to be taken for granted. The ziyarah of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein has magnificence of reward for you and I, but many people do not grasp, do not understand its beauty and its position. Therefore, when we look at what you and I and many of the brothers and sisters were indeed privileged to perform, this walk that is a demonstration of love and loyalty towards our master Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and towards his loyal brother Abul Fazl Abbas and to the Ahl al-Bayt and to the companions. Many of our brothers and sisters were touched by the generosity of the people throughout this journey. Many were inspired by their ability or their willingness to serve others. But the question is, this movement that you and I made to perform and to establish this ziyarah, this visitation, this word ziyarah that we need to understand, because lexically in the Arabic language it comes from the word zawr. Zawr means disassociation. Zawr means to completely block off. Block off what? Block off everything except the one that you have gone to visit. So when you and I are directing ourselves and are walking from Najaf to Karbala, from wherever, even if we did not have the privilege to walk and we've come to perform this ziyarah, there is an important objective to be established. An objective that some people sometimes question, like for instance Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, the man who was a great scholar. One day, he was sitting in a majlis and he heard these narrations about the impact of the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. He questioned why some of the narrations state that the value in the eyes of Allah of the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah is more than, for instance, 70 hajj outside the wajib pilgrimages. He was not sure about this. He had a doubt in his mind. When he left and started the walk, and at that time, it wasn't very straightforward. From farms and different areas he was walking, he was met by an individual. He himself says, a man was a Bedouin. He said to me, let me narrate you a story and take a rest. He said, I took a rest and he gave me a story. He said, there was a king. This story, some of you know. He said, there was a king that one day went to hunting. And when he was hunting, he lost his way. He was on his horse. He did not know where to go. It was a night time. He found a tent in the middle of the desert. He came inside the tent. There was an elderly lady there. He said, I wish to have some water and I wish to have some food. The elderly lady said, yes, here is some water. We do not have any food. My son will come and bring us some food. When her son returned a while later, he said, I do not have any food. However, because of you and that you are our guest, we have only one sheep or goat, and we will sacrifice that for you. That's all that we own. This was sacrificed, and the meat of it was presented for this king. They did not know who he was. In the morning, he says to them that, look, I am the king. If you ever need anything, come to me, and I will help you. It is mentioned that he left. A few years later, this lady dies, and the young man comes to the palace. He knocks. The soldiers said, what do you want? He said, I am an individual whom the king came and was desperate and I helped him. They say to the king says, let him come in. When he comes next to the king asks his ministers, what should I repay him? How should I give him back what he gave me? Someone said, give him 100 camels. Another person said, give him 1,000 sheep. A third person said, no, give him half of your wealth. The king said, all of you are miserly and are not doing justice to what he did. He gave me everything that he had. Therefore, it is only fair for me to give him whatever I have, and therefore I will make him a king today. He said, Sayyid Mahdi Bahr al-Ulum said, this man said to me, you are questioning the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the reward of the ziyarah of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein more than the reward of 70 Hajj, whereas Aba Abdullah gave everything for the sake of Allah. You are questioning this particular reality. However, the question that has to be in our minds is, those who walked and even those who didn't, their destination was Karbala. But what kind of lessons could they take from this particular pilgrimage or this journey? When they saw the generosity, shouldn't they be thinking, what kind of generosity do I display in my life? When I deal with my family members, when I deal with other members in my community, am I a generous person or am I miserly or stingy? When they see others wanting to serve, do I have that encouragement or that willingness in me to provide a service for others or not? Do I have this willingness to help other human beings or not? Importantly, on this journey, every step that I take, I'm getting closer to a city which has the body and the bodies, in fact, of those individuals which embodied mannerism and akhlaq to the best level. You see, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, indeed is mentioned in the Quran as having the most exemplary mannerism, akhlaq. And when we walk to Karbala, we're walking towards the shrine of individuals who are the manifestation of the akhlaq of Rasulullah. Because Rasulullah says, Husaynun minni wa ana min Husayn. Husayn is from me and I am from Husayn. And therefore, Imam al-Husayn, when it comes to mannerism, he demonstrated the important qualities of etiquettes and the way in which you and I should be dealing with each other. What should go through in our minds is that, what kind of akhlaq should I be displaying? And what should I be thinking about when it comes to my conduct and the way I display myself before others in community and in society? Because today, this morning, we had the honor of going to where Ali al-Akbar, Salamullahi alayhi, was struck. And we were waiting in a queue. And this is an important realization that should strike us all. When our brothers were waiting with a group of brothers, and inshallah the rest who haven't been will go, they were waiting in an orderly line, a queue, and all of a sudden, a group of people with no consideration for others, yet they are still zuwar of Aba Abdullah. They charge through, men and women, with no consideration that the others are waiting on a queue, just wanting to go to where this particular place which was tight is. And this is something that we see in our day-to-day practice or in day-to-day lives. That the value of the ziyarah is what? The value of the ziyarah is definitely one that transforms our lives and begins the transformation from within. If you want to know whether your ziyarah to Imam al-Hussein has been accepted, and if you want to know you have attained some of these maqamat, some of these stations that have been mentioned in ahadith, then examine your heart, examine your conduct after ziyarah and before. And if you see yourself better than what you have been or where you were before, then you know that your ziyarah has been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the true reflection and the barometer in which you and I can be able to understand the significance of moving towards these holy shrines. And therefore, when we stand before the shrine of Abul Fazl Abbas, what goes through our minds? Some of us will be able to take the lessons of brotherhood, the lessons that this individual established. Because when we are told on the day of Ashura, Shimr ibn Dhil Jawshan came on 2 occasions to offer Abul Fazl Abbas and his brothers immunity, not just once, 2 occasions. Because of his family, because of his mother, because of al-Banin al-Kilabiyya from the Kilabi tribe. Therefore, Shimr, who had a relation in that regard would offer immunity to Abul Fazl Abbas. And Abul Fazl, without any hesitation, would say to him, Wayhak, woe be to you, you wish to give me immunity, and the grandson of Rasulullah has no protection and immunity. Therefore, he was the embodiment of the principle and the value of brotherhood. Notice that when you go and you stand and you recite the ziyarah of Abul Fazl Abbas, if you wish to take the value of brotherhood, when you go back home and in your own community, in your own mosque, and somebody enters that you have not seen, maybe not from your own culture, how do you approach them? Do you welcome them? Do you speak to them? Do you indeed inculcate the principle of ukhuwah and brotherhood in your relationships with others? Or is it just the oscillation of the tongue when it comes to honoring Abul Fazl Abbas? Likewise, when you look at his courage, when the flag and the standard was brought to Yazid ibn Muawiyah, he said, I know Abul Fazl Abbas is a courageous man, because every part of the flag was stabbed and damaged except the handle, because he never let go of it. Because he never let it out. Today, when it comes to courage to say the right things, when it comes to courage to speak, when it comes to courage to change the lives of others for the better, do we have it or do we not? Therefore, most of us are able to relate to Abul Fazl Abbas. And this is the value of ziyarah, that I can go and to look at his life and to take lessons, and when I go back home, I can apply them. And arguably, one of the most important lessons that can be looked at in the life of Abul Fazl Abbas is what happened when he came to the river of Al-Alqami. Most of us are fully aware of that heroic, altruistic stance that Abul Fazl Abbas displayed. When he took out the water and when he felt the coldness, and if he had sipped some water, not a single human being would have blamed him. And when he threw it away and he says, Ya nafsu min ba'dil Hussein huni. O soul, what is your worth when Hussein and his family are thirsty? This particular action, what does it signify? I want you and I to take ourselves and our minds to be able to reflect upon this particular stance of Abul Fazl Abbas. Because what it gives to you and I is an important lesson that most of us need. What is that lesson? Today is the 1st of January, New Year's Day. Back home, many people are celebrating. Many people have also sat down to write New Year's resolutions, don't they? Full list of what they wish to achieve because it's the new year. But when it comes to actually applying and implementing the list that they have written, many fail. The failure rate when it comes to New Year's resolution is quite high, isn't it? People, for instance, write the idea that I want to, for instance, give up smoking, or I want to get a better job, or for instance, I want to buy a specific car, or I want to stop eating certain types of food. These make up the list of New Year's resolution. Yet what stops these people from implementing what they wish to do is the lack of what is known as willpower. Willpower is an important skill that most of us, in fact all of us, require to become successful in our lives. Look around you. Every individual who has tasted success in a way or another must have had during their lifetime strong willpower, strong discipline. The psychologists define willpower as what? They say it is the ability to do what you ought to do over what you want to do. And there is an important Chinese proverb that says, strong people have wills, feeble people have wishes. There is a difference. They say, if there is a will, there is what? Family. If there is a will, there is a way. Truly, when there is a way, there is a will, one can establish and achieve whatever they wish to achieve. I was once reading that there was a man, an elderly man, who had a son who would continuously dig once a year the back garden for him in order for him to plant some seeds and for it to give rise to some crops and some fruits. One year, his son was arrested for a particular crime and was placed in prison. And therefore, he was unable to help his father to dig his garden and plant the seeds there. So his father sent a letter to him, to the prison. He said, I wish you were with me. I cannot do this. Every year, I rely on you. So the son wrote a letter back to his father. He said, my father, I'm sorry that I can't be with you. However, I want you to have a secret that in the back garden this year I have hidden several guns. Several guns. Of course, this letter was intercepted by the police. They found the letter. Immediately they went to that person's house. They dug the garden in order to get the guns out. They did not find anything. The father wrote back to the son. He said, why did you do this? The son wrote back the letter with 2 words, you're welcome. In other words, if there is a will, even if you're in prison, you can achieve something. Even if you're in prison, you are able to perform what you wish to do. Therefore, today we find successful athletes and sportsmen and women who have achieved success because they have had and displayed great willpower, great self-discipline, this determination to achieve whatever they set out to achieve. And this is our problem, that in the majority of the times we come for ziyarah, we go to Hajj, we make a commitment, we strengthen our allegiance, we make this covenants with the imams, and we say, oh imams, when we go back we want to achieve this and that, but it doesn't happen. And after a while we give up. Because most of us have not been able to reflect upon this particular concept of willpower. And it is important for us just to reflect on it, and it is indeed a lesson that we can take from one of the most important and significant lessons in history and stances when it comes to strength of willpower by Abul Fazl Abbas at the Alqami. Because he had the coldness of the water next to him, and he did not drink a single drop, therefore demonstrating his strong will. Today, if you were to go and read scientific research, and there is nothing wrong with doing that, by the way. People, normally when they come forward, for instance, for marriage, we are always encouraging our brothers and sisters to equip themselves with the necessary knowledge about the opposite gender. Do not assume that, for instance, you know how marriage is like. Do not assume that you know, for instance, that you can deal with the opposite gender the way you deal, or the men deal with the men and the females deal with the females. And therefore it's important to read and to understand what the current scientific research tells us. Let me tell you that recently in year 2012 there was an important book published by a professor, a social psychologist in the University of Florida by the name of Professor Roy Baumeister. He published a book by the name of Strengthening Willpower, the Greatest Human Strength. And when you go and you read this book, he looks at willpower by examining the idea that willpower is like a muscle, but albeit a mental one. He says when you and I sometimes go to, for instance, the gym, and we have the desire to strengthen our bodies and to develop our muscles, we go through exercises. The idea that is presented by some scientists today is that if you wish to strengthen your willpower, you need to recognize that you need to exercise not your muscles but your soul. And that this needs a number of steps. This needs a number of considerations, number of ideas that need to be put in the mind. Let's look at what science tells us and then look at Islamic teachings so that we can have an idea about an overall recommendations when it comes to al-irada, what the Quran mentions as far as willpower is concerned. This particular individual in the book, he says, if you wish to strengthen your willpower, then start small. You have a long list of things. You will give up eventually. Look at and start at small tasks and build this up gradually. Number one. Number two, so that this does not become a burden on you. And number two, when it comes to issues that you wish to prohibit yourself from doing, then make sure that you place obstacles between yourselves and that task that you do not wish to do. For instance, some people want to give up smoking. They lack the will to give up smoking. Do not go to areas where people smoke, because that will open up the way for you to think about this. Some people are addicted to social networking, Facebook and Twitter and so on. They're there 24/7. So what the book says is, make sure that you place obstacles between yourself and that particular medium. Like for instance, block it on your computer. Or have a software that reminds you, you've been on it 20 hours. Yes, you've been on it too long. Or actually ask someone to remind you. In other words, put a hindrance. Specifically, he gives this example that I've given before, that if you watch TV too much, then what you should do is, every time you finish watching the TV, take the socket or the plug out of the socket, wrap it and place it in a drawer. Next time you want to come and watch TV, and God help, for instance, the brothers, their wives and their children. But for you, if you want to watch TV, then you think, I have to take out the socket and plug it in and switch the TV. I'm not bothered. Anything to stop you and act as an impediment for you doing that which you do not wish to do. Number two. Number three, he says, associate yourself with people who give you positive energy, positive recommendation. Not those who are always despondent, depressed, dismal. People who think that the end of the world is 21st of December. Or people who are always saying, you know what, we're all going to hell anyway, let's give up. There are these kind of people out there. Associate yourselves with when it comes to friends, with those who actually help you on your path. And importantly, number four, he mentions the idea that make sure that when it comes to strengthening your willpower, start by reminding yourself, setting yourself important reminders wherever you can. Like for instance, in the morning, if you have an important task to perform, most of us have cell phones or mobile phones. Set yourself a reminder constantly, because the human being is a being that is often forgetful. So ask others to remind you. Set yourself important reminders so that you're always focused on what you wish to achieve. However, what is beautiful about the Quran and the ahadith of the Ma'sumin alayhim salam is that they take the subject to another level. They take it to completely different dimension. They say to you and I, if you truly want to know and if you want to strengthen this muscle inside you, then what do you need to do? You need to understand the following. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created each and every one of us with two powers. One is al-fitra and the other one is al-shahwa. What does this mean? Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala in chapter 30, verse number 30 says, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. Each and every individual is born with this compass within. This compass that directs them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This nur that pushes them and encourages them towards monotheism and tawheed and the belief in the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala and the importance of worshipping Him and Him alone. Therefore, there is that power, but at the same time, there is the desire. There is the shahwa. There is the whims. And in majority of the cases, they are against each other. Sometimes we need the desire. We need the desire to reproduce. We need the desire to eat and drink. We need the desire to establish certain tasks in society. However, what becomes problematic is when the shahwa, the power of the shahwa becomes dominant over the power of the fitrah. And that's where you see examples in society where people have indeed become lost. Because all they do is look for their enjoyment. All they do is look for their satisfaction, for their desires. They are addicted to either food or computer games or the internet or, for instance, anything that distracts them from their main purpose and objective in this world, in this life. What we are told is that if you wish to understand this particular power or two powers that exist, think about a rider who's on the horse. The horse can be given as an example of the shahwa and the rider as the fitrah. What happens sometimes is, if you do not domesticate and if you do not control the horse, then the horse will lead you and you will not be able to direct it to where you want to go. What our objective is in strengthening our willpower is to become riders who are in control of the horse within. That's what we need to do. In which way? Look at the ahadith. Look at the Quran. إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. That this particular nafs, the soul, tends towards vice, tends towards evil. The shahwa presents itself to it as something pleasurable, something nice, and therefore there is a need for self-discipline. There is a need for exercise. There is a need for taming of the soul, exercise of the soul. In Islamic irfan, this is known as al-riyadatul ruhiyya. This is known as exercising our nafs. And how wonderful it is that we are in Karbala when we go to visit the shrines of these individuals who are the embodiments of people who got close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, despite the fact that they also had shahwa. Imam al-Hussein is ma'soom, but he had shahwa. He had desire. If he did not have desire, he would not be a human being. Rasulullah had shahwa. Amir al-Mu'mineen had shahwa, but they were able to control it. They were able to channel it. They were able to let the fitrah be the main power that directs their movement in life. How do we do this? Some of you asked the question, how can we ensure that the power within and what dictates our movements and our thoughts and our actions is fitrah over the shahwa? Because that is the key to strengthening the willpower, the first point. How do we do it? Well, the idea that emerges is that we need to understand that when it comes to our souls, it tends towards anything which is enjoyable. Therefore, we need to implement a system and a program when it comes to our desires and our wants. In which way? In the way that, for instance, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi informs us to do. He tells us that when it comes to this particular riyadha, this exercise, it must be demonstrated through God consciousness, through taqwa. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, إِنَّمَا هِيَ نَفْسِي أُرَوِّضُهَا, or according to some linguists, أَرُوضُهَا بِالتَّقْوَى. That God consciousness is indeed the key and the element that you and I need to establish when it comes to strengthening our will and making our fitrah the power that controls our actions. In which way? We are told that you and I do many things which may not necessarily be haram, which may not necessarily be prohibited. The soul desires it, but you need to control yourselves within it. How? For instance, you are not hungry, someone presents you with food. You say, I might as well eat. You're not very sleepy, but if you force yourself to sleep. For instance, in the early hours of the morning, you wake up, but you say, you know what, I'm not bothered to wake up. You stay in bed. These are all tendencies that the human being is giving into their souls. The Urafa say, those who follow the Quran and the Ahl al-Bayt, they say, if you wish to strengthen the muscle within, then you must establish the ability to say no to things which are not necessarily haram. Things which are trivial in the eyes of you and I. Some of you have heard the story that is mentioned at the time of the sixth Imam, that there was a Christian monk who had the wonderful ability to be able to inform others about things that they cannot see, or be able to reveal whatever they had hidden from him. So for instance, if they hide whatever they want to in their palms of their hands, he would tell them what it is. They came to Imam al-Sadiq and they said to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, this man is causing people to join the religion of Christianity. What should we do? Imam al-Sadiq calls him. He said, oh man, how have you developed this ability? He said, the way I've developed this ability is when I inform, when I want to do something, or when my soul tends towards something, I say no to it. If I wish to drink water, I don't drink water. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with drinking water. But it's about the ability to say no so that you're stronger at moments of temptation. When there are moments of temptation, you're sitting there on a television, in front of the television, and all of a sudden, there is a Bollywood movie. Allahu Akbar. Especially Bollywood, huh? Because many of the brothers and sisters, they say, Maulana, Bollywood, chill out. What's wrong with Bollywood? I think you might have mistaken the first word. I think you mean Hollywood. Because the problem is when the shaitan comes and does this tazyeen, says fine, this is not a problem. You're sitting there and you're thinking yourself, shall I or shall I not? Shall I or shall I not? No one's watching, no one will know. I'm fine, let me watch it. But the moment that you are able to say no previously and you're in control of your desires and the whims, then it is easy to switch the channel or to switch the TV completely off at that moment, because you're in control, not your whims. That's what we need to establish. Abul Fazl Abbas next to the Alqami, he was in control, not his desires. If his desires was in control, he would have had the water. But he threw the water because he had this important muscle from within which he has sharpened like a knife, and that is willpower. That is Abul Fazl Abbas. Look at how this man would say to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. He would say, what I do is this. Imam alayhi salam would say to him, I have something inside my hands. Tell me, what is it? The man begins to shake. Imam says to him, why are you shaking? He says, because I can see inside the palm of your hands part of Jannah. Imam al-Sadiq says, you're absolutely right. Because what I have inside me is turab from Karbala. I have dust from the soil of Karbala. Imam then says to him, what do you think now? What is your soul telling you? He says, my soul is telling me run away. Because if this man has part of paradise next to him, then his religion is the religion of the truth. Imam says that you need to apply what you have just told me. He said, that's fine. I go against my soul and I will embrace the religion of Islam. Therefore, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Next day, of course, what happened next day? He lost his ability. He came to Imam al-Sadiq. He said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I've become a Muslim. Now I've lost the ability. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded you for the self-discipline before when you were a Christian in this world. Now that you've become a Muslim, this has been taken away from you. Your reward is in Akhirah. Yes, what you have done is something great. Therefore, this self-discipline begins through a system, a program of understanding our nafs. As we know, the famous tradition, man arafa nafsa faqad arafa rabbah. Number one. Number two, something that we need to inculcate and make a habit, and that is muhasabatun nafs. Brothers and sisters, if you wish to have a strong will, a determination, then make sure you hold yourself accountable. لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُحَاسِبْ نَفْسَهُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ. Whoever does not hold themselves accountable every day is not one of us. In which way accountable? What have I done? What have I said? What have I looked at? In which way have I conducted myself? And the idea then emerges is that next morning or the next day, I should be very careful not to repeat what I did before. Some people say, you know what, I have tried this, but it doesn't work. Here is a tip. I have mentioned this before. This tip, because most of us are afraid of giving money, right? So we think twice when it comes to giving money. And this is where the nidhr comes. So today, if you have a problem, like for instance, some of us, God forbid, have a problem of backbiting. Others have a problem of looking at movies which are not permissible. Others, for instance, chat continuously with the opposite gender for no reason. And have what? Have evil intentions in their minds and in their thoughts. Each and every one of us might have a habit that we wish to get rid of. If you want to do it, what better way than to go to the shrine of the Imam and Abul Fazl Abbas here in Karbala during these holy days of Arba'een, and to make a nidhr. Nidhr meaning what? Meaning you say, oh Allah, if I do this next time, I will pay $1,000. Then see if you do it or not. Most of us will think twice. Next time there is that thing that we used to do, we say, aha, I don't want to pay $1,000. That's too much for me. Therefore, that will draw me back. That will be a hindrance for my actions. That is part of the muhasaba and the muraqaba and the musharata that we're told we need to continuously practice. Another tool, another recommendation within the religion of Islam for strengthening our will, taking these individuals as the exemplary ones, is by looking at time management. That when it comes to the 24 hours in our day, most of us waste it. In which way do we utilize it? When we were told by one of our Hausa teachers that one of the ulama once, he used to have a habit of coming late for the lesson, for the dars. He did this for 6 months. When he came one day, one of the students was talking to another. So he said, why are you talking? He said, one of the students asked me, this teacher, he's so always late for the lesson. Why is he always late? I said to him, do you know, in the last 6 months, whilst waiting for him to arrive, I have memorized at least a third of the Quran. Just waiting for the teacher to come. I have the Quran and I've begun to recite and read it. I have used the time at my disposal. The time is not a concept that you and I should take lightly, because unfortunately in the West they say it's your time, spend it the way you like. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala swears by time, which means every moment and every second you'll be held accountable for. How did you use it, and in which way did you benefit yourself, your family members, and humanity at large? That is what should be in our mind. Those people who utilize the time are those who have and have developed good and strong willpower. Another recommendation is examine your conduct, your akhlaq. Because the narration says this riyadatun nafs comes through akhlaq. In which way? Those who have hurt you, forgive them. Those who do not speak to you, go and speak to them. Those who have asked you for dua, remember them in dua. Those who have asked you for a help them. In other words, akhlaq is truly how our ibadah manifests in our day-to-day lives. You have heard of the story that there were 3 individuals who wanted to assassinate Rasulullah. They wanted to kill the Holy Prophet. Jibreel sent this message to the Holy Prophet. Rasulullah sent Amir al-Mu'mineen to stop them coming from Mecca to Medina. Amir al-Mu'mineen came, he fought all 3. He killed one of them, and 2 were arrested or brought to the Holy Prophet. The Prophet said to them, did you want to kill me? They said yes. They said, you still want to kill me? They said yes. The Prophet offered them the religion of Islam. They rejected it. Therefore, the Prophet then ruled that they have to be executed. So Amir al-Mu'mineen at that moment executed one of them. Before he executed the 3rd, Jibreel came down and said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah sends his salams, and said do not execute this 3rd man. Why? Because he is the man of generosity and akhlaq. He has these qualities. When this individual asked, why am I not being executed? He said, this is the reason. He said, then if this is the religion of Islam, which truly looks after the foundations in which society can flourish and become harmonious, then I will also embrace and join this wonderful religion. And he became a Muslim. Many a times, this is what we need to look at. Many of us can walk, can talk, but we need to also walk the walk, not just talk the talk. It's easy to say, but it is also very, very important. and more crucial to apply what we are saying out there in reality. We are told that there was two brothers. One of them was selling honey and the other was selling vinegar. And the man who was selling vinegar was much more successful than the man who was selling honey. So the man, his brother, was thinking honey should be bought more than vinegar. Why are people buying vinegar more than honey? One day his wife, the wife of the seller of honey, went to the other store to see what was going on. When she went there, back in the time, she said, I do not have a container so that you place the vinegar for me. He said, no problem. I will give you a container from here. You go home, you pour it and return it back. Return it whenever you wish. She came back and said to her husband, do you know why your business is not flourishing and your brother is? He said, why? She said, it's because you are selling honey, which is sour. He is selling vinegar, which is sweet. In which way? Because it is infused with akhlaq. And that's what we need to do. So when we look at these, we can recognize that when we are in Karbala, we are in the city of the strength of willpower. Each and every individual who were around Abu Abdullah Al Hussein showed unbelievable self-discipline, determination before and during the 10th of Muharram. Just examine the night of Ashura. Just examine how Sayyid al-Shuhada had filtered his companions one by one when he would come and ask them, when he would say to them that the allegiance and the covenants that you have given me is now severed. Now you're free to go take a member of my family and go. Because these people look for me and they wish to take my life. And therefore save yourself. People like Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Muslim ibn Awsaja, they rise one after the other. Muslim ibn Awsaja said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, on which face should we direct ourselves on the day of judgment before your grandfather Rasulullah, and we say that we have deserted you? By Allah, if I am killed, then brought back to life and did this for 70 times, I will continuously sacrifice myself for you. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, if they burn my body and I am resurrected, and this happens 1,000 times, I will never desert you. Look at this commitment. Look at this strength. That on the 10th of Muharram, Burair, one of the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, is seen smiling. They say to him, Oh Burair, why are you smiling? He says, there is nothing to be saddened about. In a few hours, we'll be in Jannah. We are fighting with Abu Abdullah Al Hussein. These were individuals who looked at the University of Karbala and sought from their master the strength of willpower. And when we look at individuals around Abu Abdullah Al Hussein, in addition to his companions, we recognize that indeed after Abu Abdullah, and no one was better than Imam Al Hussein when it comes to endurance and when it comes to discipline and determination and the power of the will. After him, we find this man, Abul Fazl Abbas, whom indeed displayed these values for us to take away and to apply to our lives. And the others around Abul Fazl Abbas would be inspired by this person, by what he did, by his stance, by his sacrifice and his altruism. You only, for instance, need to look at the likes of Al-Qasim. You only need to look at the likes of, for instance, the Awnan Muhammad. These people who would be unwavering in their commitment, in their loyalty, in their allegiance. But I wish to, in this afternoon, recall the masa'ib of one man who has not been mentioned in our trip so far. This man, and this masa'ib especially for the fathers and the mothers, and especially for the mothers. You are in Karbala. When we recite the masa'ib back home, we say to people, take your hearts in Karbala. Brothers and sisters, you are already in Karbala. For the mothers, let them connect with a mother by the name of Layla. This lady who had Ali al-Akbar, the 27-year-old man, the eldest son of Imam al-Hussein, how difficult it is for the father and the mother to bid farewell to their sons. In which way should they say to their sons that you are to go and not to return? In which way should they bid their final farewell to their son? You find Ali al-Akbar. Not only was he the beloved son of Imam al-Hussein, but indeed he was the embodiment of the akhlaq of Rasulullah. He resembled how Rasulullah looked. He spoke just like Rasulullah. Therefore it was so difficult for Imam al-Hussein. What kind of strength did Abu Abdullah have when Ali al-Akbar would come towards him, when the companions, each one after the other, had given their lives? The first man from Bani Hashim to emerge with Ali al-Akbar, the man whom his mother Layla says back in Medina, what would happen in Medina? He would say to his mother, "Oh my mother, when you are preparing some food, then I want the smoke that emerges from the oven to continuously burn, so that the poor in Medina know that we have food, so that they would come and knock on our doors. I want to give them some food." This was the generosity of Ali al-Akbar. On the morning of Ashura, the companions of Abu Abdullah, they would hear the adhan of Ali al-Akbar. Some of them, it would remind them of the time of Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar. Ali al-Akbar comes to seek permission from his father, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. For those fathers out there, how difficult it is for you to see your son ready to go and embrace martyrdom and death. Imam al-Hussein looks at his son, and narrations tell us that when others would come to Imam al-Hussein, he would say to them, "Go back." He would say to them, "Your time is later." But for Ali al-Akbar, Imam al-Hussein does not say anything. His khuda hafiz, his farewell is to embrace, is to hug Ali al-Akbar. He would say to him, "Bunay alayhi ilayya ilay, ashummuka wa tashummuni." Oh my son Ali, come towards me. This is the final wida'. They both embrace each other. Historians tell us that they were both weeping so much that they both fell unconscious. Allahu Akbar. How painful these moments are. At that moment, Imam al-Hussein looks up to the heavens and he cries out, "Allahumma shhad ala ha'ula'i al-qawm. لقد برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس برسولك محمد خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا." Oh Allah, be witness against these people. Notice how Imam al-Hussein does not make this dua except for Ali al-Akbar. This is the demonstration of Imam's pain, of Imam's suffering. He says, "Oh Allah, this young man, he resembles Rasulullah in his looks. He resembles Rasulullah in his mannerism and his speech. وَكُنَّا إِذَا اشْتَقْنَا إِلَىٰ رَسُولِكَ نَظَرْنَا إِلَيْهِ." Every time we wish to look at Rasulullah, we look at Ali al-Akbar. The narrations tell us in Medina, people who did not see Rasulullah, they come and say, "Where can we see someone who looks at Rasulullah?" They say, "Go to the house of Hussein." To the extent that Imam al-Hussein had a special room for Ali al-Akbar. People would come inside the room just to look at the face of Ali al-Akbar. Imam al-Hussein, when he would bid farewell to his son, it is as if he is bidding farewell to Rasulullah. At that moment, Ali al-Akbar, he goes towards the battlefield. Imam al-Hussein is not finished, Imam al-Hussein is still complaining to Allah. Then he looks at the army side. He says, "Ya Umar ibn Sa'd, قطع الله نسبك كما قطعت نسبي." May Allah sever your lineage just as you have killed, or you are about to kill my son. Ali al-Akbar moves towards the battlefield. He cries out,
about أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي أضربكم بالسيف حتى ينحني ضرب غلام هاشمي علوي. I am Ali, the son of Hussein. We are indeed those who have honored to be the members of the family of the Prophet. I will strike you with my sword until it bends. I will protect the sanctity of my father and his family. Ali al-Akbar fights so bravely, so courageously. The narrations tell us that he kills more than 120 of the enemy combatants. Allahu Akbar. Layla, his mother, according to some narrations, she was in Karbala. She comes out. She cannot see her son in the battlefield. It is too distant. It is too far. So the only way she could see whether her son is doing well or some hardship has fallen upon him, she looks at the facial expressions of her husband, Aba Abdullah. She looked at Imam al-Hussein, and Imam al-Hussein's facial expressions all of a sudden changed. Layla was fearful that there was something that had happened to Ali al-Akbar. She said to him, Sayyidi Aba Abdullah, tell me, is there anything wrong with my son Ali? Imam al-Hussein says, no, but there is an enemy combatant who has come to fight him that I'm afraid might hurt him. The moment is that Layla wants to see her son one more time. She wants to see Ali al-Akbar one final occasion. She asks Aba Abdullah, how can I do this? Imam al-Hussein says to her, if you want to see your son one my final time, then know that the dua of the mother is answered. This is a call for all the mothers. You go to Abul Fazl, you go to Sayyid al-Shuhada and pray for your sons, because your dua will be answered. At that moment, the narrations tell us that Layla went inside the tent. She sat in front of the prayer mat. She took off her hijab. She looked up to the heavens. She cried out, Ilahi bi gharbati Aba Abdullah, Ilahi bi dhulmati Aba Abdullah, Ya Radd Yusuf ila Yaqub, Rudd li Bunayya Ali. Oh, the one who has returned Yusuf to Yaqub. Oh, the one who recognizes that Hussein is alone in Karbala, that Hussein is oppressed in Karbala. Return to me, my son. Ali al-Akbar, of course, returns from the battlefield. Yet he's thirsty. He's tired. He comes to his father. Abi akhi abi Aba Abdullah, hal li min sharbati ma. Is there some drops of water that I can quench my thirst? Why? Because the weight of the armor is too heavy on my body. Imam al-Hussein says to him, Bunay Ali, oh my son Ali, in a few moments your thirst will be quenched by Rasulullah from the pond of Kawthar, after which you will never be thirsty again. One narration tells us that Imam al-Hussein says to his son Ali. Why did he say to his son Ali? He noticed he was so thirsty. It is the father who is heartbroken for his son. He looked at his son. He said to him, my son Ali, come towards me. Why, my father? He says, so that I can give you part of my saliva, that part of the water inside my mouth. Ali al-Akbar, ajarakum Allah. He looks at the mouth of his father Hussein. He says, my father Hussein, by Allah, I see that you're even more thirstier than I am. Allahu Akbar. At that moment, Ali al-Akbar is told by his father, return back to the tent. Your mother is waiting for you. Ali al-Akbar returns to the tent, finds his mother Layla unconscious due to the dua and the supplication. He sits next to his mother. He starts to weep, and the drops fall on the cheeks of Layla. Layla wakes up, her eyes open to to see her son Ali al-Akbar before her. She looks at Ali al-Akbar, my son Ali. Is that you who has returned? Is that you who has come back to bid me farewell for the final time? Ali al-Akbar rises. She says to him, Bunay Ali, one thing I want you to do before you go. I want you to stand up before me. I want you to walk back and forth. This is the final time my eyes cast itself upon you. The mother wants to see her son for the final time. Ali al-Akbar returns to the battlefield, thirsty, tired, but fights courageously. Some enemy combatants, ajarakumullah, they say we will make his father mourn for him. Hamid ibn Muslim, other historians, they say we said to them, is it not enough that he's been surrounded? He says no. When Ali was busy fighting, a man came and struck him on his head with a sword. Ali al-Akbar at that moment falls onto the horse. The blood gushes from the head of Ali al-Akbar. It fills the head of the horse. It blinds the horse. Allahu Akbar. Instead of the horse taking him to his father, the horse takes him to the other side. They all now surround him. One person stabs him, another person hits him with a spear, until finally Ali al-Akbar falls onto the ground. In which state does he fall onto the ground? At that moment he calls out, alayka minni salam ya Aba Abdullah, hadha jaddi Rasulullah. Oh my father Aba Abdullah, peace and blessings be upon you. This is my grandfather Rasulullah. He has quenched my thirst. Imam al-Hussein leaves towards where Ali al-Akbar is, or where he thinks Ali al-Akbar is. Sukaina said to him, my father, I heard the sound of my brother Ali this way. Why are you going the other way? Imam says, my daughter, do not blame me. His voice has broken me. I have no comprehension where to go. He sits next to his son Ali. Bunay Ali, ala dunya ba'dak al-afa. My son Ali, what is the point of this world after you? I am sorry that you called me and I am unable to help you. Allahu Akbar. Of course, this is the moment that Ali al-Akbar is to depart from this world. But Ali al-Akbar is seen smiling and is seen at the same time saddened. Imam al-Hussein asks him why. He says, oh my father Hussein, on my right is the Prophet. He has quenched my thirst. But on my left is my grandmother Fatima. What is my grandmother Fatima doing? The narration tells us that my grandmother Fatima is slapping her cheeks. She is crying out, Wa Husayna, Wa Ibna, Wa Madluma. When at that moment the soul of Ali al-Akbar departs from this world, all of you, I want you to cry out, Wa Aliya, Wa Madluma, Wa Sayyida. Imam al-Hussein returns to the tents. Sayyida Zainab, Layla, Sukaina, the women are waiting. Where is Shabih Rasulullah? Where is our brother? Where is our nephew? Imam al-Hussein calls out the young man. He says, go and bring the body of Ali al-Akbar, for surely I have no strength. Allahu Akbar. On the day of Arba'een, when every person from the family of the Prophet, they returned back to Karbala. Allahu Akbar. Just imagine how Layla, she would return back to the grave of Ali al-Akbar. In which way she would speak to him? What would she tell him? In which way should she complain to him? Should she tell him about the chains and the whips? Should she tell him about the fact that the veil was taken away from them? Or should she tell him that the head of his father was poked on the courtyard of Yazid? ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين وإنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.